Still had bad days, flare-ups, which would permanently damage my lungs. My lungs need protection against flare-ups. So it's time to get real. Because in the real world, our lungs deserve the real protection of Breztri. Breztri gives you better breathing, symptom improvement, and flare-up protection. It's the first and only COPD medicine proven to reduce flare-ups by 52%.
Breztri won't replace a
Harry, you're
respirator.
not on mute there.
It is not for asthma.
Sorry, I was just gonna wait for the meeting, but
Oh,
I'll do.
that's, we can hear your commercials.
There's worsened breathing,
I have to find out how the Queen is doing.
problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
For real protection, ask
Queen? Oh,
Yeah, Elizabeth Queen, you know, she's been in the hospital. She's like,
I'm sorry, that, the real Queen.
yes, and the last item on the national news is how's the Queen doing?
Oh, okay, got it, got it.
Hi.
Andreas, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Can you just make sure can you give me the pronunciation of your name so I don't make a mistake here tonight?
It's Andreas Kapogis.
Andreas? Say your
Kapoglis.
last- Kapoglis.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good evening, everyone. How's it going? Okay, everyone's pretty busy. Good. Thumbs up. Thank you, Liz, for that acknowledgement. I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off at 7:01 p.m. I think we've got a quorum on. Trying to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay. Why don't I go ahead and call our meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Like to remind people that the Salem School Committee would like to hear from the public on issues that affect the school district and are within the scope of the committee's responsibilities, and that Spanish interpretation is available. Anyone who would like to submit public comment may do so during the meeting. There's a link you can attach. You can hit on the salem.com school committee agenda that will provide you with a form you can complete, as well as emails and phone numbers if you'd like to call in. I would entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Manning,
And it,
seconded by Ms. Campbell. All those in favor, Ms. Manning,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming. I don't see Mr. Fleming here. Dr. Pangallo,
yes.
Ms. Nuncio,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz. Let's see, Mr. Cruz, Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
and Mayor Driscoll, yes. 5 members in the affirmative, the matter carries. Next item would be approval of our consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Motion made by, I think, Ms. Nuncio, seconded by Dr. Pangallo. Does that sound fair? Okay. All those in favor? Ms. Manning,
Aye.
Dr. Pangallo,
Yes.
Ms. Nuncio,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz, I'm sorry, Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
and Mayor Driscoll. Yes, 5 members voting, 5 in the affirmative. We should let the record reflect as of the start of the meeting, neither Mr. Fleming nor Mr. Cruz have joined us. I'm not, Ms. Manning?
Yeah, I spoke with Mr. Fleming earlier. He's not doing really well, so he was going to make an attempt to attend, but he thought he may not.
Okay,
So I'm not surprised he's not here.
okay. Mr. Fleming appears not to be joining us, and I think I just saw Manny pop in, so he's here. We'll make a record note to the file that Mr. Cruz has joined us at 7:04 p.m. So we have dispensed with our approval of our agenda and the consent agenda. Why don't we move on to public comment? Ms. Weiss, are you going to be able to provide us with any public comments?
Yes, Mayor. The first public comment is Mr. Richard Stafford of 30 Boardman Street, and he has asked to speak. Okay.
I see Mr. Stafford is on. If we need to unmute him or if he can unmute himself, that would be great. Hey, Rich, we should be able to hear you if you'd like to offer your comment.
Thank you. Well, good evening, members of the committee. Richard Stafford, 30 Boardman Street, Salem. Under Salem's allocation of money under the American Rescue Plan Act, we're scheduled to receive approximately $9 million specifically targeted to public education. Can you explain what steps have been taken to date to engage the school community and the larger Salem community in prioritizing how to spend these funds to maximize their beneficial interest on our students, their families, and our teachers over the period of time from now until December 31st, 2026, when they must be fully expended? I'm hopeful that the additional burdens that the pandemic has imposed and the additional skills that have had to have been acquired by both students and teachers will be recognized in a significant allocation of funds to those groups. On a slightly different matter, Bertram Fields track and turf were installed in 2014, and the manufacturer's recommended assessment for repair for each surface is no more than 7 years after installation. This critical $2 million investment in Salem sports and recreation programs will serve the community for many years if properly maintained. Given the turnover in the supervisory position responsible for such a review, is there a plan in place currently to review the condition of both surfaces at this time? Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Mr. Stafford. I know the superintendent was hoping to provide an update to us on ESSER funds. And the other issue you mentioned is something we can follow up with you on. And certainly follow up with the commission, with the committee. Thank you. Any additional comments, Nancy?
Yes. So the first one is, excuse me, Hillary Grimes of 25 Butler Street. And she would like to have her comment read. I recently watched a recording of the October 4th school committee meeting and wanted to voice my concerns about school committee member Jim Fleming's treatment of student representative Hawa Tabai. Mr. Fleming's conduct towards Ms. Tabai was aggressive, unprofessional, and disrespectful. School committee members should be fostering relationships with student representatives, not chastising them or telling them their opinion is wrong. Ms. Tabai responded thoughtfully and with grace, and I hope she realizes what an asset she is to Salem Public Schools. I also hope Mr. Fleming recognizes this behavior is unacceptable and shameful as an elected representative. I look forward to hearing more from Ms. Tabai in meetings to come. Please let her know that parents in the community like me respect and value her work in the district. The next comment is from Sarah Hill of 22 Amanda Way. To the school committee, I was appalled after watching last month's school committee meeting where Jim Fleming publicly berated the fabulous Hawa Tabai. His words and actions were uncalled for and inappropriate. Mr. Fleming, shame on you. You should know better. There should be zero tolerance for this type of behavior. How dare you speak to Hawa in such a derogatory manner? I would like to see, at the very least, Jim Fleming offer a public and sincere apology to Hawa. I'd also like for him to better understand his role as school committee member, which means advocating for students in all of our schools, not just Salem High School. Awa, you are so articulate and remain so calm and composed during Jim's atrocious outburst. I'm so impressed by you. You give me so much hope for the future. Kudos to you, Awa. Thank you for taking on this important role for the district. I appreciate you so much. Next, Cindy McCullough of 1000 Loring Ave. Parents have a choice and you can't force anyone. You're violating their rights. I've had 3 shots. I have 3 grandkids in the schools and I respect my children's decisions. If you try to force parents to vaccinate their kids, be prepared of losing them in school. So I would think twice before trying to force this on these children. The next is from Kathleen Coates of 51 Hawthorne Street. I am unavailable to attend tonight's public comment portion of the meeting and would otherwise be more than willing to read aloud myself, but wanted to be sure that my feedback was submitted. I'm terribly disappointed in what transpired during the October 4th school committee meeting. How Mr. Fleming spoke to our student representative was utterly out of line and frankly unacceptable. I would expect Mr. Fleming to recognize his error and apologize to his fellow board members. I have 2 elementary school age daughters. If my children demonstrate half of the perseverance, strength, and unapologetic confidence that Awa did, the world would be a better place for all. It goes without saying, Awa deserves Mr. Fleming's apology as well. Thanks to the members of the board who recognized this as unjust and called it out publicly for what it was. Next one, Miss Bonnie Bain, 22R West Avenue. I have seen Awa's leadership in our community. I believe that protecting and uplifting her work will lay the foundations for Awa's predecessor and all of our students, both present and in the future. We are incredibly fortunate as a community to see her take on this challenging and nuanced leadership role with vision and purpose. We should be mindful of what is being inherited and ensure that they do not carry this burden alone, as it really isn't their burden to carry in the first place. I saw some reprehensible communication from Jim Fleming that sought to reduce Awa's role to listing off upcoming events for the committee instead of further encouraging her efforts. The approach Jim Fleming had with Awa, both in word, tone, and body language, was reprehensible and entirely inappropriate of any adult with a student, much less a sitting member of the school committee. I encourage the committee to take a good look at the challenge being faced by the student, to fill a glaring need to ensure a true student voice be represented at these meetings, and to look to themselves, particularly those who have been on the committee as long as they have and understand how they could have and should do better. Thank you for your steadfast conviction and leadership, Awa. The next comment, Jennifer Palermo, 18 Piedmont Street. Mr. Fleming's interaction with Ms. Tabai, I'm sorry, Hawa, in the October 4th meeting was incredibly disrespectful and just plain wrong. This is someone who is clearly out of touch with today's issues. Fortunately, we have a shining star. She understands the needs of students and has a bright future ahead of her. If this were a company, Mr. Fleming would be disciplined for that behavior. Ignoring this without any consequences to him is turning a blind eye. Next comment, Susan Rains of 20 Green Street. I strongly believe that the vaccine decision must be up to the parents. We do not have long-term data on the vaccines, and therefore this cannot be forced on families when severe harm could come to our vulnerable children. In addition, natural immunity should be accepted if a child has already had COVID. And final comment, Robert St. Pierre of 20 Green Street. I think it is ridiculous that we mandate to have children forced to be vaccinated. There is too much controversial information of what the possible effects could be with the vaccination with adults, let alone our young children. Let's keep this decision to the parents and their family doctors. That's it.
Thank you. I believe there's one attendee with a hand up. I'm not sure if that's someone who's,
They did not submit a comment. If you wanted,
yeah, I think our typical policy is that we do require you to sign up in advance. I recognize school committee members. Generally, we try and work with members of the public prior. So if there isn't an objection, I'm happy to allow this individual to offer a comment. Okay.
you want me to-
You want to unmute? Yeah, unmute the individual. And if you wouldn't mind saying your name and address for the record, Mr. Millar, if you're interested in public comment, I thought I saw your hand up.
I did put my hand up and I did fill out the form online asking to be recognized just about exactly as the meeting started.
Okay, great.
And honestly, I saw the October 4th school committee meeting maybe 4 or 5 days ago because I'm a little behind. And after I watched that school committee meeting, I went to the next meeting to see what sort of response was given to the comments Mr. Fleming, the 18-year school committee member, made to the new student representative, where it was clear that the student representative understood Mr. Fleming's, or understood the role of the student representative more than the 18-year school committee member did. And I have to say, before those comments were made, I was thinking to myself, you know, this student representative role has seemed like sort of a silly college application thing for the last, I don't know how many years. And I can't believe there's a student representative who's here trying to speak truth to power. And this is wonderful. And then she was chastised for it. And it was just wrong. So I'm glad to hear the comments that were read into the record after I had raised my hand. I agree with basically every single one of them. I'm sorry, I in 3 minutes tonight managed to find the high school athletic schedules online for all of the Salem High School sports teams. I don't need to hear calendar updates from a student representative. I need to hear what the students are struggling with. And I think it's great that we have a representative who's providing that now. I like that the student representative report has moved a little bit later in the agenda than it used to be. I absolutely applaud Ms. Tabai and beg her to continue advocating for the Salem High School students. I would also add to the school committee that the Salem High School parent-teacher organization within the last hour has posted an endorsement for a city council candidate while also claiming to be a nonprofit organization. And if it's true that they're a nonprofit organization, that's highly illegal. If they are not a nonprofit organization, they shouldn't hold themselves out to be such on Facebook And I hope that the school district will find some way to address that immediately. Thank you.
Mr. Millar, would you mind giving us your name and address for the
Oh,
record?
I'm sorry, Jeffrey Millar, 29 Boardman Street.
Thank you. And with that, I think our public comments portion of the meeting is over, and I will move us forward to the superintendent's report. And Dr. Zweig, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just, we heard a comment earlier regarding the ESSER funding. At least I know we talked about getting an update for the school committee, but as part of your presentation today, if you could just do a brief synopsis for that individual and for others who might be interested relative to the ESSER dollars.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very valuable comment. We did a engagement in the spring around ESSER. We used information from our budget forums. And then we also had, we hosted a series of conversations about coming back from the pandemic and how we should be using resources that actually Chelsea facilitated. And that information, that input helped drive our application. But there's still opportunities to weigh in because not all the money has been committed. Obviously, the committee's aware we made a huge commitment to pre-K. We made a significant commitment to reducing class sizes, to hiring tutors and interventionists, among other things. But I do think it's time for us to represent to the community around our use of ESSER dollars and provide additional opportunities for people to weigh in as we head into the budget process for this year. And, you know, as the commentator spoke of, ESSER will last us for the next 3 years. So, you know, stay tuned to a future meeting where we'll share that information.
Thank you. And other superintendent's report, I believe that's the point of the agenda we're on. So thank you.
Yes, I don't know if there was looks like there's a question, Mayor, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Cruz.
No worries at all, Mayor and Superintendent. Just a quick question. While we're thinking about ESSER dollars and representing to the community, I know that DESE recently released the process for the SOA amendment process. And so I think it would be great if we could get an update regarding what the plan is for Salem's stakeholder engagement on how we are planning on using our SOA dollars. I know that we haven't in the past received too much from the state with respect to the reforms that were recently passed on the Chapter 70 formula. Nonetheless, I know that there has to be a stakeholder engagement process around those amendments. So I'd love to just flag that as well for a future meeting. And then additionally, I know the mayor has raised pieces around the ARPA process as well. So that timeline is going to be really critical. And it's exciting to see the ARPA, and that's the American Rescue Plan for folks listening at home, is also making its way through the legislature. And there's some new grants that are making their way through. A couple pieces I would just love to highlight that at some point, I hope Salem is applying for as a district. The House, as they took up ARPA, passed some significant funding around closing the digital divide for communities. And then additionally, of particular interest for Salem, given the superintendent's goals, the Ways and Means Committee and some of the leaders actually put forward $10 million to DESE to support additional diversification efforts of the educator pipeline. So I would assume that we'll be front and center applying for some of that funding as we look to continue to diversify our educator pipeline, and just wanted to raise those pieces here as well. And then, of course, to just thank folks that were advocating today on behalf of our student representative, and just wanted to note for the record that she's not able to join us this evening, and I'll be providing her student report later in the agenda. She's filling out college applications, so go AWA.
Right. Thanks, Manny. And yeah, we'll definitely, I'm actually the chair of the 21st Century, the committee on the 21st Century allocation from the state. And so I do have some updated information on SOA that I can share. I can share certainly in the next 2 months. So I will do that at a future meeting. I did want to take this moment, as I mentioned last week, we had a second winner of the Superintendent's Award for Academic Excellence, and he is joining us here this evening. I want to, a student from Salem High School. And again, I just want to remind folks that the award for excellence is to a leader in each community that is given to high school students who have distinguished themselves in the pursuit of excellence during their high school careers. It's around their academic performance, their ability to exemplify leadership, and had a chance to speak with the administration at Salem High School. And the individual that was nominated and is receiving this award is Andreas Capogillis. Did I say that all right? Or correct me?
Kapoglis.
Okay, thank you. And let me just read a little bit about Andreas. He's demonstrated a drive to be part of the Salem High School community while pushing himself to grow and engage in experiences outside of school. While at Salem High School, he has played all 4 years of soccer, of which he's been the captain for the last 2 years, and 3 years of volleyball. He has also sought out opportunities to build the skills and better understand our world through community service projects via the National Honor Society, the Harvard Model UN, Michigan Justice Advocacy Internship focused on criminal justice reform, and political and legislative research internship at Salem High School. He's also held multiple class offices as he's advocated for the student body during his tenure as the National Honor Society Treasurer, class president of the freshman class, member of the Student Advisory Council, sophomore year, and currently serves as a peer mentor. So I want to award you with the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Certificate of Excellence. Here you are. We'll be making sure you get this. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well deserved. Mr. Burns, I don't know if you want to say anything, or Andres, if you would like to say anything as well.
Andreas, thank you for all that you do to exemplify the core values at Salem High School. In your performance in the classroom and outside of the classroom makes all of us proud of you. And I look forward to seeing what your next steps are as you plan on your college and career goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great to have just such a supporting school and community to support me through my endeavors. I know that as a student, I've always felt supported through my schooling process and all my years here in Salem, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us, Andreas, and for accepting this award, and to the superintendent for putting this forward. I don't recall us having the Superintendent's Award for Academic Excellence coming before us in the past. I think it was done. It's just we didn't always get a chance to highlight and thank the students who were being recognized. So appreciate your hard work. Know that it pays off and that you're not only representing your high school, but you're representing our entire community. And we're really grateful for that. So proud of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And Andreas, don't feel like you need to stay. We wanted to recognize you. And I think last week or our last meeting, you had a soccer match. So we appreciate you carving out time tonight to be with us, but don't feel compelled to stay throughout the whole meeting, okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Dr. Zreich, I'll turn it back over to you for additional comments you might have under your superintendent's report.
Yep, we have just a few more comments and then we have one larger presentation. But tomorrow is our professional development day for all schools except for Carleton. I'm getting used to these different schedules here in Salem, but Carleton had their professional day today. Tomorrow, all schools have a full day of professional development on election day. And I was just going to have Assistant Superintendent Carboni just mention or share what the plan is for schools tomorrow.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Our professional development tomorrow is school-based. So our principals worked with their ILTs, their instructional leadership teams, to plan agendas for their school to specifically support their school improvement plan goals and priorities. And principals and their leadership teams, along with their instructional coaches, will design and deliver the PD. It will include collaborative time for teachers, as well as I believe some schools are processing some of the equity imperative modules, which are at the center of our equity and anti-racism work. this year. I would like to highlight two things. Our ECC, our Early Childhood Center, is collaborating with Salem State University. We have 4 professors who have worked with Principal Smith and to develop a really nice day of workshops for all of the preschool teachers and paras to they get to self-select some of the sessions. Everyone will participate in one session that is universal design for learning and differentiation at the pre-K level. And the presenter is Professor Leah Rode. And then there are 3 other sessions, and all of the teachers and the paras will get to pick 2 of these 3 using math centers to build counting and cardinality skills. And that's going to be presented by Professor Catherine Price. The next one is making the most of reading aloud in the pre-K classroom, and that is being presented by Professor Francesca Pomerantz. And then the last is advancing equity through classroom materials, and the presenter is Professor Megan Schumacher Murphy. So we're really excited about that day and thank Salem State for their partnership. And then we also have the first of a 3-part series of 2-hour workshops that have been planned by our head teachers at Salem High School, specifically for our specialists. So our art teachers, our PE teachers, music teachers, and world language teachers. So those teachers will come together from across schools for 2 hours tomorrow, and then they have 2 other sessions later in the year. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Kate, for that
Thank you.
update. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we can shift into our larger presentation of the evening, which is, as we discussed at our last meeting, we were going to come and share information about the work that we're doing. Believe it or not, the pandemic is still with us. COVID is still with us. So what's currently happening in Salem Public Schools around our pandemic response. We're sharing plans about expanding vaccine access, and then want to begin a discussion with the school committee around any additional vaccine requirements and expectations, building off the conversation from last week. So here's our agenda and the areas that we're going to be diving into here tonight. So, but I'm going to start by turning it over to Chelsea Banks, who's the Chief of Opportunity and Response, and who's really led this work, along with Charlene Mosky-Weber, who is also with us, who is our head of health and wellness, nursing health and wellness, who's here with us as well. So Chelsea, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Drake, and I do appreciate this chance and that Dr. Mosky-Weber has joined us tonight as well. I'm going to walk through a lot of data, which is an attempt to update you on where we stand as a community and present the information that we have at this time. It is imperfect, and I will share where that is, but I think it will provide another layer of depth than we have been able to go to as a community before. So I welcome you to pause me as we go, but do note that I'm going to go through about 6 kind of dense data slides. The first here is just a look at our community. So COVID-19 has remained in our community as Salem continues to increase our overall vaccination rate. So in the chart, you can see last winter, December and January were that spike in the middle. We did come down last summer and we were up this fall, but the last 2 weeks have been a declining trend. So we will hope that continues and appreciate the efforts going on citywide to help protect our community. We are over 32,000 residents who are vaccinated at this point. That's 82.5% of the eligible residents, which is a great number to see. However, our youngest students, or our youngest population, which are many of our students, still do remain the lowest vaccinated groups amongst our community. This is a busy slide, but what you will see is for each school, there is a color, and it goes week by week, the number of cases. So it just goes 1 to 10 on the axis, and you can see the number of cases. In many weeks, there are 0 cases at multiple schools. So you'll see them all hit that axis at the bottom. And you'll see we've ranged from 5 cases to 19 cases in any given week for students. And we did have 1 week with a number of staff cases, but the rest have been quite low. And so we've had over 100 total cases this year for students and 10 for staff. We are monitoring these closely. We have had a handful of instances where we've had a single homeroom or 2 homerooms switch to remote learning for a short period of time in order to ensure that there's in partnership with our Board of Health and the recommendation to make sure that we are protecting against spread in schools. But these are largely isolated cases coming in from the community that we are responding to in contact tracing. And I'm going to switch to the next slide because it leads right into, we are doing over 2,000 tests per week in our community, which is enabling us to find these cases and make sure that we are caring for the individuals who are impacted and making sure that we are doing the contact tracing. So this work just cannot be possible without heroic work from our nurses and our testing teams. And so we do want to make sure that we say thank you to all of that work that happens. It is a response team that comes into play when we do get word of a new positive case or when we have a positive pool from our testing in order to find the positive and respond. And I'll just highlight, we are up to 57% of our district with consent, which is a steadily increasing number. We actually see consents go up every week, which is really good to see. And we've had 1,900 days of school that last year students would have been in remote learning and quarantine. And this year they're able to be in person with us through Test to Stay. So we are grateful for this program. It is a lot of partnership and communication with our families and with our community, but these families have signed up to enable us to keep our community safe and to keep our kids in person learning, which we appreciate. As we continue to work to expand testing, I do just want to note where our consent rates are across different schools on the right. So going in descending order from Carleton with our highest consent rate down the list. And then on the left-hand side, consent rate by race and ethnicity and sorry, that should just say race and ethnicity. Oh, it is age group. I apologize. I'm sorry. There's a bunch of data slides today. The blue bar here, the blue bar is K to 6 and the orange bar is 7 to 12. And the reason I broke that out when I was thinking about this is because you'll see that those who have access to the vaccine do have slightly lower vaccine rates than those who do not. And so we do see slightly higher rates in our elementary and middle schools as opposed to our high schools. And so you'll see a variation. The gray line that's going across that chart, you'll see a couple times today. It's just the percent of our population. So you can get a sense of how many students we're talking about. On the bottom, we are working in partnership with Dr. Maskey Weber and the nurses to continue outreach to increase consents. We've had coordination with the PIC office. We have seen new consent forms come in as soon as the student enrolls, which is excellent just to get them right into our systems and all signed up. We do have a new athletic season, which will have the required testing as part of it coming around the corner, which will again reach to a new group. We have started phone call outreach by testers and teams to help reach out for consent. And we do when there is a new case, we do end up reaching out for increased consent if any close contacts are not yet part of our program. And I am very grateful for Laura Assad and the family engagement facilitators in City Connects, who we have continued to grow in partnership with and are working in more regular communication to see how their relationships with the community can help expand our reach. I'm going to turn now to data about the vaccine. So that was about COVID in our community and our testing program. And this is where we stand with the vaccine. These numbers come from the same system. It is called the Massachusetts Immunization Information System, MIIS. Here you can see a chart that it's actually from the 12th, but where on the left side, the 12 to 15-year-old Salem is the dark blue bar on the far left. In the right side, it's the 16 to 19-year-old. Salem, again, is that smaller, like dark blue bar. What you will see is orange is the next one over. That's the state. And then 3 neighboring communities, Lynn, Peabody, and Beverly. The takeaway from this for us is that we are lower than all of those other bars on both sides. And we have work to do. And so I'll dig into the data here a little bit, but on obstacles, we do not have data on the obstacles. We have anecdotes. So this is take it as what it is, but there is a lot out there circulating on social media and our ability to overcome that information has been limited. We have heard from our students different decisions within households where we actually have had more students say to us, I want it, but my parent does not yet want me to. And so we have some work to do there of how do we influence if kids are in different places than their families. and a lack of trusted relationships and bridging relationships with the schools and public health. And so this does come back to existing relationships or our ability to bridge those relationships and whether or not our students and families see the schools as a source of health information, which is more new, I think is what we're hearing, but also our ability to work with our community health centers and local hospitals and doctors in order to get the message out. And so this is just anecdotally some of the pieces that we're hearing. I will just note, just because I didn't make a whole new slide, in the green box at the top of the slide, we are 92% of our staff for school-based staff are vaccinated. So as far as vaccine rates, it is 92%. Mr. Cruz, you previously asked me, I do have the breakdown of who those individuals are if you want to go into it later. But it is 70 individuals of our total staff who have not shown proof of vaccination at this time. Digging into our students, 56% of our eligible students have had at least one dose of the vaccine, but the rates do vary across groups. So on the left-hand side, it is age. And so you'll see in dark blue, fully vaccinated, and in orange, at least one dose. On the very left-hand side, this is sixth graders. So it's just our 54 sixth graders in the system who are 12. So many of these are newly turned 12-year-olds who are starting to be vaccinated, but that bar is likely lower because of the, they're just newly 12-year-old. What you'll see is 7th through 12th grade. And what is interesting, or what we were observing as we were digging into this data, 11th and 12th graders have had access to the vaccine for longer. So there were many of the students who had the ability to get vaccinated at 16 and over in the original authorization, whereas the 7th through 10th graders are the second round, that 12 to 15-year-old tranche of the vaccine approval. And what's interesting is our middle schoolers were more likely to go out and get the vaccine than our 9th and 10th graders. So we do see that dip significantly at the 9th and 10th grade level, which does, again, connect back to this previous slide. If you look at the right-hand side, our 16 to 19-year-olds being lower in our community. On the right-hand side is the student information by race and ethnicity. So along the bottom, you'll see African-American, Asian, Caucasian, Latino or Latina, and multi-race. Along the bottom of this whole slide, you'll actually see the number of students in each group. So here you can again see the number of students who are eligible on the right-hand side and the differences. And so we do see some large gaps on the right-hand side of the slide. Turn it over to Dr. Strike.
Yeah. So just to give you an update of like what efforts have we made thus far on ensuring access and sharing information. You know, we've had 4 community-wide clinics beginning last school year at Saltonstall at the auditorium. We've had event-based clinics at the back-to-school picnic. For instance, when Salem High School had the back-to-school picnic, we've also had school-based clinics this year at Saltonstall, Salem High School, and Collins, with more planned in the future. And then the vaccine has all along this year been available inside of Salem High School at the Teen Health Clinic. But we know we have to expand our outreach. We focused a lot on access, but not as much on influence to help address questions and concerns that different facets of the community may have about the vaccine. And what our current conversations have been is how do we partner public health officials, and we're working with the city on that, to partner with our staff who have relationships with families and students to help bring expertise into the community. Our staff can't answer all the medical and health related questions. And then of course, the health officials don't necessarily have the relationships that we do in the schools that we have with families. Same with our after school providers, our community partners who work very closely with our students and their families. And so how do we bridge public health with our school staff who have those deeper relationships with families? We want to make sure that we continue to ensure access, as we know that we've heard from the athletic director and from our band director that students are aggressively pursuing the vaccine, and we've seen most students are quickly complying with that requirement. The music students, the majority had already been vaccinated, but we are seeing an increase in our athletes getting vaccinated in advance of the winter season. And we are still going to continue to run clinics at Salem High School, Saltonstall and Collins, as we just mentioned. So I do want to stress what's in bold again. We have to take a different stance and strategy, because just offering the clinics at the schools, we're not seeing increases in numbers by just, we have to have conversations with people to be able to answer their questions and help mitigate against some of the hesitation and anxiety that people feel, or that has been informed by, at times, not factual information. Next slide, Chelsea, if I could just jump in at the beginning here, Chelsea, I know this is your slide, but can I just steal the start? All right, so obviously there's a lot of interest in the grade 5 to 11 year olds. I posted this weekend that I did make an appointment for my own children, and I had a flurry of people asking where I was able to make that appointment, both personal and professional questions. My children's pediatrician is in North Andover. We did get a link asking us if we wanted to sign up, and their first appointment is not this their appointment is not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I say this by saying, I want to be clear, like, I wanted to be first in line for my own kids. Both of my children had COVID. So to the point that was raised earlier, that it's not necessary for kids who have developed immunity, I still worry about my children contracting COVID and giving it to my my father, who's very ill and immunocompromised. I want them to be able to see their grandfather, and I want my children to be first in line to be able, I will assure you, I did not do anything. I didn't skip any lines here, but I wanted to make the call right away. And I feel very comfortable with my children, my 8-year-old and my 11-year-old getting vaccinated. And I would really urge this community to do the same. We are going to put out a letter from the Department of Education explaining the urgency around this. We know that this is the only way that we can ensure the health and safety of our community, and more importantly, our ability to move beyond all the mitigation strategies that are necessary, but they are annoying, right? The masks and all the other distancing and all the other things that we've had to, the gymnastics we've had to do. We want to move away from that in time. And the only way we can do that is that we continue to push vaccinations for everyone in the community. I am very excited to turn it back over to Chelsea to talk about what some of our plans are for beginning to offer the vaccine to 5 to 11-year-olds. I want to just let the school committee know this is a different slide than what you received earlier today, because in the last few hours, there have been changes to the schedule. So I'll turn it back over to Chelsea, who can help explain what our plan is.
Thank you, Dr. Strike. And I will just emphasize, as we are talking about the availability of the vaccine at schools, if you have access to the vaccine at your pediatrician or in other spaces, we do highly encourage you to take advantage of those appointments. We are offering the vaccine on site at schools, but we will not be able to immediately vaccinate all 2,000 plus children ages 5 to 11 that we educate. And so we do appreciate everyone who is able to secure those appointments outside of school and allow us to make sure that those who need the appointments at school sites to be able to get them. And so I am also very grateful. It is daily calls now between the North Shore Medical Center, the city, the state is working with the city and us to plan these clinics. And so what I will give you is the hot off the presses, what we have confirmed for today. We are also taking a learning stance. And so we will be watching how these clinics go and adapting. You'll see different times, beginning of day, middle of day, end of day. You'll see different places on Saturdays and different options. And so we are going to watch how they fill up. We will be sending out information about how to reserve your spot. And we are working again with our family engagement facilitators to help make sure that the outreach is in place to get this information out to our families. But for right now, what I can say are a few different things. One, we are guaranteeing there will be on-site clinics at all schools between now and Thanksgiving. And again, as Dr. Drake said, this is beginning next week because it is not actually we're not actually able to give the vaccines until next week, pending everything going according to plan. And so between the 9th and the 23rd, we are looking at clinics at all of our school sites. There will not be, I just want to preface this, there will not be enough appointments for every child at every site. However, this will get us started and we will continue to roll through and add clinics as we learn and find the demand to meet that demand and create those opportunities. And so we will start at Bates and Carleton next Tuesday, starting bright and early at 7:30 at Bates and then going in the middle of the day to Carleton. go to Bentley ECC on Friday from 2:30 to 5. I will just note that this van is coming to us from Market Basket. So if you want your vaccine, you can still go to Market Basket every Friday. They are there. So we're picking them up after Market Basket. At Saltonstall on Saturday, we did have over 120 families come in the spring when we went to Saltonstall on Saturday. So we will reopen that clinic at Saltonstall. We are excited to have that opportunity. At Salem High School in Collins, again, we are still also acknowledging the requirements are coming into place. So we want to be making sure that we are providing those access to those older students who have had the chance before. And at Collins, we have new 6th graders who will be eligible for the vaccine. So providing those sites. And then at Witchcraft Heights and Horace Mann, we have 2 guaranteed clinics right now from the state. And so our thought right now is that those sites, Horace Mann, both because it's in proximity to the high school and can be opened in partnership with the city, and the city has a plan for how to vaccinate out of the high school. So we are looking at that site, and Witchcraft Heights because it's our largest concentration of 5 to 11-year-olds in this city. And so we are hoping to confirm those dates this week with the state. So it is not that there are not Witchcraft Heights and Horace Mann dates. It is just that they haven't been confirmed yet. And so as soon as we get those dates, we will get them out to the community. As Dr. Zreik said, we will be sharing a communication by midweek about what we do know and how to sign up. And be releasing information as soon as we get it. And I do just want to say thank you again to Dave Greenbaum at the city and the state who's making available the Witchcraft Heights and Horace Mann likely clinics. And then our partners at North Shore Medical Center have now been daily communications and Zooms to get everything set up. And so they are really leaning into Salem and helping us make this possible for our community. And I will turn it back to I think I'm going to Dr. Mosky Weber, who's going to talk just a little bit about the context of vaccine requirements in schools.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, right here, it's just kind of an overview to remind everyone that vaccinations are required for school entrance. And if you look at the vaccinations that are currently required, it's upon entrance to preschool, which is not reflected here, or kindergarten. And a variety of doses, depending on the age of the child, are required. Again, most people get these at their pediatricians during the wellness checks. Hepatitis B, MMR, varicella, otherwise known as chickenpox. And then moving on to the older kids in grade 7, when they're required again to have a wellness check or a physical, they usually get some boosters for some of the prior vaccines. There is now a new requirement for the meningococcal vaccine. And I find this a particular interest because the state required this vaccination in the 2020 school year. But of course, with COVID, it was hard to enforce. But this particular school year, the meningococcal vaccine is required for students once around 7th grade, and then again after the age of 16. Now, if they wait and have it after the age of 16 as a first-time dose, that's acceptable to the state. But as you can see, it just demonstrates that things change. The booster for the meningococcal is a brand new requirement as of this particular school year. So I think it's an important point to make that vaccine requirements for school entrance and to remain in school without being excluded have been around for a very long while and continue to grow and change, as evidenced by the meningococcal vaccine.
Thank you, Charlene, or Dr. Mosky Weber, much appreciated. So as we think about COVID-19 vaccination and whether we should move towards a district vaccine requirement, I just want to be clear, I'm not making a recommendation here tonight that we should adopt a vaccine requirement for COVID-19. But I do want to offer some considerations and give an opportunity for discussion. I have had conversations with legal counsel as well as with other districts and have done some studying of this across the country. What's clear is that any requirement and timeline for a district-wide vaccine requirement for COVID-19 should be connected to a full FDA authorization. So right now, it's only authorized for 16 and above. So, but the guidance I've received is that any vaccine requirement related to school, when we say school, we mean the school day, should be connected to a full FDA authorization. Secondly, we would want the Salem Board of Health to vote or to weigh in on a potential requirement. Here's some language that other communities have used. We'd have to add COVID-19, the COVID-19 vaccine to others that have received full FDA approval to list vaccinations that are required except for medical or religious exemptions for students in the Salem Public Schools. So we would, it's been clear in talking to state officials, our legal counsel, that it's important that the Board of Health weigh in and vote on this, as well as the school committee. Precedent, there are other districts and school systems that have had taken votes. Amherst is the most, is one that I think has been the most clearest. They have a requirement tied to FDA authorization for school. Los Angeles Unified, Cambridge has had some conversations, and Puerto Rico have introduced this added layer of mitigation. So there is some context. The other thing I'd add that's not here is that, of course, if we have a student vaccine requirement, we would also naturally, all staff would have to be required to have the vaccine. And right now, our policy per the school committee is that staff who are not vaccinated have to be tested multiple times a week. We would have to institute a vaccine requirement for staff as well. And as Chelsea mentioned, we have about 70 or so staff who are currently not vaccinated. Next slide, Chelsea. This is the last slide. And so I open for discussion, whether it's here tonight or in the coming weeks and months, sort of what we see as the benefits and risks of a vaccine requirement. Clearly the benefits are high and strong. I mean, we think the virus is still with us and continues to impact the daily course of operation, and will continue to if more significant action isn't taken. I mean, we want to rid ourselves from the disruption. While there's less disruption to Chelsea's earlier slides of missed school days, it's clear we still have interruption and disruption in school. We've had to quarantine at least 5 or 6 classrooms. We have kids who are missing school. It's obviously disruptive. Masks, none of it's ideal, but we're moving towards hopefully a better place, and certainly the vaccine would help. We know the vaccines work. We've heard that over and over. The risks of the vaccine are proven much lower than getting COVID-19. So I have not read a thing, again, I'm not that kind of doctor, that suggests that the risks of getting the vaccine are greater than getting COVID-19. I mean, there's much more concern about getting the disease than the whatever the potential impact of the vaccine is. And then we do know that it's our pathway to community health, and to as I said before, to minimize some of the strategies that we've had to put in place. And we're going to have to continue to keep those strategies in place if our vaccine rates remain low. Today, I think Hopkinton High was the first high school to take the masks off, because they reached the 80% threshold. I mean, I think they were closer to 90%. We're not even close. I'm not suggesting that we should reduce those strategies, but if we want to get to that place down the road this school year, of course, the state just extended the masking requirement till mid-January. But if we ever want to get to the place of no masks, we really need to move. We have a lot of movement to make around the vaccine. There's obviously risks right now. We know that right now we have a lot of our some of our families and students this could have an impact on certain communities. You can see by racial demographic that many of our families in certain racial groups have not gotten the vaccine, and we don't want to unnecessarily, impact those communities. Certainly in restricting any access to the critical experience of school, and then especially as we talk about equity, how do we ensure that everybody has access to high quality instruction, high quality learning experiences? We want to be careful that we don't do anything that unnecessarily negatively impacts certain populations of our students. And then finally, we do know that, there is skepticism right now around public health, and it's part of, racism that, inherent racism that exists in our systems, and inequities that exist in our systems. And so these are all things we need to consider as a community as we make a decision. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm not making a recommendation at this point to put in a district vaccine requirement, although I do think it's important that the school committee and the Board of Health have these conversations, and that we, over the next few weeks and months, so that we can ensure that more of our community is vaccinated, and that we are, headed towards, a springtime where we're in a much better place than we are right now. So I'm going to stop there. I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, to see if there's questions or comments from the school committee.
A lot of information, obviously a lot of work ahead of us with respect to not only ensuring our students are vaccinated, but thinking about the policies that are going to put us in the best position to avoid interruptions and think about maintaining the greatest sense of normalcy for our students. We know how difficult it has been even this year, right? When we're back in school, to keep everybody back in school and to end those disruptions, and how important it is for our students to have not only the routine, but also to feel safe. And I think that's in many respects, this pandemic has put on the foot of local officials, at the feet of local officials, what are the ways that we're going to keep our kids safe so we can keep them in school, and our staff obviously as well, so we can keep folks in school and give our students and our staff the best opportunities to be successful with the work that we do, that we took for granted, I would say, throughout the years prior to this pandemic. So thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns for the superintendent, Ms. Mosky-Weber, or Chelsea, Ms. Banks? Is that a hand up, Mr. Cruz? Mr. Cruz, and then Dr. Pangalo. I wasn't sure if you were just stretching. Or...
Yeah, that was not very clear. My apologies.
No,
Mayor
it's
Driscoll.
all good. All good.
Yeah, appreciating the presentation here. Chelsea, just want to thank you for your diligence on my question for last week. That is much appreciated to know where we stand with staff, and totally agreeing with the superintendent with the conversation that we're having today. And process wise, I think those recommendations, at least coming from council and looking at other communities, make sense with respect to the Board of Health weighing in and then us following suit. And I think you have a committee that's really in agreement about what the best way forward out of the pandemic is. So I won't really touch on some of those pieces. It's really about the risks and those equity strategies that I think need to be put in place. So I think I just want to double click looking at some of the numbers across, the testing opt-in and looking at some of the numbers with respect to the vaccination rates. It's like very clear to me that the outreach is an area of significant improvement for us, especially when I see like the Bentley out of all of our elementary schools is at 43% opt-in just for testing, which again, I think we all know the demographic data. It's primarily Latino students that are attending the Bentley, and it's a little bit different than some of our other schools in that respect. And so that to me says, as we're thinking about like ESSER, additional resources, how are we bringing in additional trusted messengers to spread the message? So, I know folks, the training is going to be much appreciated for them to reach out. I'm just thinking about whether or not we can do a couple of things. So the first is like coupling our outreach with other areas so that we're really like a one-stop shop where we're talking about this as an addition to other services that the district is providing. So as an example of this, like I wonder about like what's the value of our transportation coordinator currently, who was a FEF before and has deep relationships, right? As we're talking about navigating transportation issues, like are we thinking about folks like her as someone who could be doing some of this outreach to parents as we're navigating transportation issues? And that should go across all the other service areas, whether it's like, transportation for students and families, food, services, other pieces that I think we have really high engagement from some of those hard to reach communities, and really adding this in as another layer of like checking in and saying, you know, how do you have this conversation? Like really thinking about it as a project, right? A conversation project. How do I have this conversation with my families? Because I found, you know, I'm out in the community, I'm talking to folks. A lot of it is the misinformation that the community is seeing on Facebook regarding the vaccine, what it does, what it doesn't do. And then usually after about like 5 minutes of just saying, hey, by the way, I'm vaccinated. I encourage my mom to get vaccinated. I tell people that my mom got vaccinated and they're like, oh, Hobia's vaccinated, like done deal. And that's fine. And so I think I'm also, so the coupling I think would be important. The second piece is, you know, who can we recruit to do this work within our system? Like who are the right players? I wonder about the outreach we were doing during the pandemic, just checking in with families about their needs. I'm sure that a lot of educators were building really great relationships. I mean, we heard from our union partners directly just how much they were connecting with families. Is there a way we can have a conversation with them about like revisiting with some of those same pool of students, like the 10 that were assigned to staff for outreach, if we know that if we like cross-reference those students against vaccination rates, you know, can they be the ones that do the outreach, just given the fact that they themselves as educators might be vaccinated and already have an existing relationship. So I just think like looking back at who's had contacts with some of those families already might be a really great way of like boosting the numbers. And then I just want to like express my concern regarding like understanding, you know, I'll be supporting a vaccine mandate, no question, once we get FDA approval. But again, like I worry about who gets excluded in a process when we have those mandates. So, you know, whatever we can do as a body to help as well, like I would love to be recruited into some of these efforts to ensure that, you know, we're doing things in a way that will lead to less harm in communities that have been disproportionately impacted. I think about what's worked well for like the city of Chelsea, and it has been that everyone's bought in and doing that outreach. So please count on me, Dr. Reich, as well as you're thinking through folks that want to do some of that community-based outreach.
Thank you, Manny, for those comments and insights. Dr. Pingala?
Hi. Oh, excellent timing, Lucy. Hi.
Hey, Lucy.
Well, first of all, I wanted to just thank all of the district staff who've been working so hard on this so that our little ones can be vaccinated, because I know just it's an enormous burden is lifted, knowing that our kids can get protected. So thank you so much for that. I'm gonna try and get my kids vaccinated through like other channels to free up the spots in the schools and encourage other parents who have that ability as well, so we can really maximize the potential of having in-school vaccination clinics so early on. I think that's really powerful. So thank you so much. And then I wanted to reiterate what my colleague, Mr. Cruz said. I'm happy to participate in any way I can with the vaccine mandates and the outreach. You know, one thing that I think we should remember is that I agree with your assessment, Dr. Reich, that this is our low rates are it's telling us about our relationships and that we have to do some more work there. We also don't have time to fix that problem before we need to get our kids vaccinated, because that is going to protect them, and more than anything else, it's going to protect them. It's going to protect their health. And so I know that mandates they sound scary in many ways, and I think the word itself is a little bit troublesome, but we know that it does seem to work, that people will go ahead and get vaccinated when they need to, and it is going to help protect our community. So I am very supportive of this, but with that being, we need to do all the outreach that we can to help make this work as well as it can. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Other comments? Ms. Manning?
I had a couple of comments and a question. The question is, are we actually actively using the community partners, the LEAP and the Boys Club and the Y to really get out there and recruit? Or are we just hoping they're doing it because they have some connections with families that we might not have. Or do we have identified, have we met with them and have identified people in those organizations that are gonna do that? And perhaps there's an issue of, well, do they need to do that after their normal hours? And, is there a way that, I know, again, Manny mentioned Chelsea, and I know when I read the big article about Chelsea in the Globe the other day, I mean, there were a lot of people recruited and paid to do some hours doing very specific community, contacts. So that's my question. Like, what are we really doing with those people to see how much they can help in this? And then I know I've said this last week, but I'm just going to keep harping on the issue of maybe we are, but I don't know that we're using the contacts through the churches. And I mean, if we are, great, but I'm not hearing that we are. I'm not really seeing much of that. I know if I drive by the parking lot at Immaculate on Hawthorne Boulevard when the 12 o'clock or 11:30, they keep moving in. Spanish Mass is going on, that parking lot is mobbed. And I know there's some longtime people working there that have relationships with the folks that are attending those services. And, I would love to see when everybody comes out of the building, comes out of church to head for the cars, or if they're walking, to head for the bridge. If there's either a table or a van or a booth or somebody holding a flag or anything there to attract attention to some conversations. And I'm only saying that because I see that when I go by, but I know there are many other churches, like St. Peter's has a pretty active connection with a lot of people. So I'm just going to keep drumming on the churches. And then, because I tend to think of logistical kind of questions, I have one question for Chelsea. On the slide that had the listing of the dates of the clinics, on using I think the bottom two were Collins and Salem High School. So they both had 2 dates, and they both had the same time frame. So Collins, I think had a November and a December date, and both of those were, there they are. Both of those Collins things are in the afternoon, and both of the high schools are the same days but in the morning. And I'm wondering, is that for a reason, or should we flip them? Just to get and I know that the parents don't necessarily have to go, but some are going to want to. But I'm thinking more really of say the Bates Carlton combo up there.
Yeah.
I can imagine if you're the mother of a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old and they're going to get their shot at school, you're probably going to try to be there. And I'm just asking, why is there a reason, or can we flip that at a later date for future ones?
I'll answer this one quickly, and then I don't know, Dr. Streich looks like he might want to be responding to some of the other pieces, but for right now, this is first shot and second shot. So people who are available, we do want to make sure that they can get their second shot. So if we switch the times for this set of clinics, these are actually all exactly 3 weeks later. So this set, I think we would hold that second time just to make sure that if you are a family and you did sign up for a time that does work for you, we are scheduling more, and we definitely agree with you. And part of what we're doing is trying to learn from these times. Are we, who's coming and who's able to access at the different times? And so we will try to learn from these and then schedule more accordingly and at variable times. So we agree with
all right. So that's on the burner. Thanks.
First shot and second shot.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I was just going to say, I think there's a strong desire to, for partnerships to work here. I think everyone's touched upon that, whether it's youth service organizations, interfaith organizations. We frankly did a lot of partnerships as part of the older adults that obviously needed to get vaccinated, including going to some of the masses and trying to partner up with both mobile clinics and others. And I think there's more work to do on that front as we think about the youngest. Oh, all the babies are joining us today. This is great. As we think about, tackling this younger age circuit. I just want to be clear, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it as a city, as a school district, and all our ideas are welcome to figure out how best to partner, for sure. I don't think we're going to need to do that at this meeting. If you have ideas, there's a lot of folks working on it. In the interest of time, I guess I just want to recognize at some point we may need to explore a policy once the vaccine has been fully authorized to require this. We are looking at young adults where this vaccine has been authorized, where we have that gaps. And that is a problem for us if we're ever going to get beyond this game of what I call ring around the rosy with respect to schools. We don't need to make any sort of decision tonight. I guess we just need to make sure people are aware where we stand today, how we're going to approach this going forward. If you have ideas or suggestions, to get those to, frankly, to Chelsea, who's been running point on this. There's a strong desire to partner up with organizations, make sure we're singing from the same script, so to speak, and maximizing relationships to build that trust to get as many of our young people vaccinated. I think I saw Dr. Pangalo's hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify in case anybody watching wasn't sure, for watching now or watching later. So tomorrow on November 2nd, the CDC is meeting, their committee is meeting about an emergency use authorization for ages 5 through 11. That is not full authorization. So we're not talking about a mandate going into place for our 5 through 11-year-olds right now, or even our 12 to 15-year-olds. The only full authorization at this time is 16 and up, the vaccine that's been available to the public for, I'm not sure exactly how many months now, 9+ months at this point. So just to be really, really clear on that, the mandate that was proposed by Dr. Zreik would not be for emergency use authorizations, but only for the full authorization.
So thank you for that, Dr. Pangalo. So I think it's safe to say we're all want to do our part to try and enhance the number of youth that are vaccinated. We recognize, I think that puts our school district in the best position for allowing for uninterrupted schooling as we move forward throughout this school year. And hopefully we have this final approval necessary for tomorrow, and know that the Board of Health, the Health Department, our local community health organization, and our youth services partners, you know, are going to be getting together and galvanizing opportunities to make sure that we're sharing information and doing everything we can to incentivize and make it easy for people to get vaccinated. I think the tricky part is the folks who are ambivalent or who are hesitant, and that's the group that we really need to target. The people who are okay with getting vaccinated we're going to make it easy for them too. They're going to find their way there on their own. It's the ambivalent and hesitancy that we're really up against. And that's going to take more work, no doubt about it. So more to come on that front. Anything else on this issue? You know, we're going to continue to plug away at this, both as a city, a community, and a school district. And I think that's what it's going to take. And maybe the best thing we can do is, you know, try and continue to report this out. I think we need to put this in the forefront of everyone's minds at upcoming meetings. Where do we stand? Like, what's the thermometer look like for the number of students? And that one-on-one, two-on-one, those conversations that Dr. Zreik mentioned, trying to use our family engagement personnel to make sure we're touching base with everyone. If it's ambivalence versus hesitancy, it's a little bit easier to overcome. Hesitancy requires us to certainly entertain discussions with more practitioners here. And I know we've got willing partners to aid us in that effort. So, okay. Anything else on this, Dr. Zreik or Chelsea, that bears mentioning? Anything else on your report, Dr. Zreik?
Yeah, one more thing. Again, I want to thank Chelsea and Charlene for their work and really the work of all of our health professionals. Our nurses have been, I mean, beyond outstanding. I mean, look at the work that's been done because of their efforts in implementing testing and, you know, having I think, very strong data. These folks have been working on overdrive. So and it hasn't stopped. You know, we're now, not that I think everybody is, but a special call out to the team that has been doing this work, which I would have never guessed would have been part of any of our job descriptions before the pandemic. So I want to thank everybody for that. I did want to also, this was not on the agenda, but I did send a note to the school committee that I wanted to discuss the possibility of a district wellness day for November 12th or November 24th. Over the weekend, I heard from some other communities, or I saw that other communities around the country had taken this notion of having a wellness day for everybody's the mental health and students and staff, so folks could recharge, similar to what, we tried to do last year after Halloween with the 1 week break. And we know people are exhausted. This has been a trying year on so many levels for everybody, parents, staff, administrators, and of course, our students. And so we wanted to, I wanted to just put out there the notion of a day which would allow us to have a longer break. If it were November 12th, which is the day after Veterans Day, we would have 4 days consecutively of no school. If it was November 24th, which is the day before Thanksgiving, you'd have the Thanksgiving holiday. And what I really want to stress is like no email, no communicate, no district work. I don't want to say shut the district down because we're always operating, but that we really respect people's need to disconnect and recharge and enjoy time with family. I'm obviously, I'm not going to be offended if there isn't support from the committee to do this. I did float this idea with our teachers union, with our administrators. We spoke to some parents. Generally, there was good support for the 12th more than the 24th. And I'll tell you that on the 24th, people felt, well, that's already a half day. And they also felt that there's some longstanding traditions, which I don't quite know all of them in Salem, on the 24th that involve pep rallies and some sort of stew day at Salt and Stall. And there's, a list of things that are very near and dear to people. And I don't want to eliminate any of that. But I do think that this notion of an opportunity to recharge and wellness is perhaps an important thing for us to consider. And if we don't do it for next Friday, that we would, maybe consider it at another time this year. Just two last things before I turn it over. It would require that we add another day to the school year, which would be June 15th would be our last day for the majority of schools. Right now, we end on June 14th. Secondly, it would, so I actually lost my train of thought. One would be, that we would have to extend the school year by a day. And so, secondly, I know what I was going to say. We did also check with our childcare providers to see if they would be available to take students on Friday, November 12th. While they wouldn't have immense capacity beyond the students they already serve, they would be able to be open during the day to support the families that they normally serve as part of the programming, like Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA. All right, I just said a lot. I'll turn it back over to the committee, see what their thoughts are.
Great, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. So I was thinking a lot about this, and first of all, I think the idea of having a free day, I think will be really well received by teachers. As somebody who spends all day in an elementary school building, I myself have never experienced this level of exhaustion, and I don't think that teachers have either. We were talking about it just the other day about how last year felt like so much and so unusual, and I think we were all caught really off guard by how hard it would be to do this year of school. My only thought that I had was if the 29th perhaps would be a better option, given that it's a full day of school and truly more of a full day of rest as opposed to the half day, while also still giving people time to adjust. I think for many of us, myself included, for those of us who have the bulk of our family or all of our family vaccinated, there's the hope of having a small family gathering, and maybe the idea of being able to extend that a tiny bit might really be appreciated by staff members and maybe family members as well. But my second thought was putting my teacher hat on, the idea of having some flexibility and some options for staff, or at least some type of agency over it. I know just like snow days are often very polarizing. Some people really love them and some people don't want to add on to their school year. They want the end of the year to be the end of the year. If there were the option to at least provide some type of vote to STU and put it out a little further, I think that people might appreciate that, because some people are really of the mindset that they don't want to add to the school year. They'd rather slog through. And so it might not feel that way. I think they're probably in the minority in this case. I think a lot of people would appreciate it, but at least giving some type of option. But I do feel like the 12th, although it would be great to have that 4-day weekend, and I'm sure people would really appreciate it, that might just be a little bit too close to pull off in a thoughtful sort of way for people. So those are just my 2 cents, but I do as the recipient of one for tomorrow. My own district is doing this. I think it's been really, really well received by our staff as well. And I think that people would really appreciate it. I just want to make sure we allow them some flexibility in the way that they engage with it, or the way that, I want people to feel like they had some voice in it.
Thank you. Other thoughts from folks? Dr. Reich, is this something we have to vote on today? Obviously, if you're going to pick one of those earlier dates, I think there's strong sentiment for wanting to offer an opportunity for everyone to recharge, given some of the challenges with routines both students are having and staff are feeling, as well as we're trying to make up for academic gaps, get folks back on track with respect to expectations in classrooms and in schools and the like. And I'm just wondering about the timing. Is this something that you can poke at some more? Obviously, we're not going to vote tonight for something that is going to turn around that quickly for tomorrow. Am I sensing the right thing there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I appreciate Amanda's point, Ms. Campbell's points. I do, if we were to do something, it does require a vote by the school committee because it's a change of calendar, right? So, but what I could do, what we could do is we could ask for community input on a series of dates between now and the end of the school year, the end of the calendar year, with the 29th being an option, the 24th being an option, or or even in December at some point. If it, which would give, I regret that this is late for a week and a half away. So I understand that, but we could do that, and I could come back to the next meeting with data from the community. But yeah, I see Miss Manning has her hand up as well.
Miss Manning?
Yeah, I understand what Ms. Campbell's saying, but I really think that people are in a lot worse, tough shape than we think, that we thought they would be, both students and staff. I still hear from a lot of folks in the schools, and nobody that is talking have said they've ever really gone through anything like this opening. And nobody has seen the kids in the shape that they're in for this opening. We all thought, everybody's going to come back from a, horrific situation, and everybody's going to come back in some kind of a different sort of emotional state than they certainly would have left on March 13th or whatever, 2 years ago. But I really hear people that are really, really laboring in much more difficult circumstances, both for themselves and for the students. And it's not us. I mean, it's not our schools. It's schools all over the country. I mean, you read about it. You read about, I was reading an article the other day of a group of Philadelphia principals who said, "We can't do this anymore. We need help. We don't know what to do to help these, students get back to where they were." And I think that's the same that's going on so many places, and we're no different. I think we're fortunate that we're not experiencing sort of some of the outbreaks of the fighting, et cetera, that some of the places are. But that doesn't mean that people's emotional situations aren't really hanging by threads in some cases. And when I thought about this, I thought, like, this is a really good time to just do it like soon. I know that Dr. Carboni sent out a letter to staff recently that was copied to us that talked about how, slow down, you don't have to get through every planned curriculum, every single class. And I just think this is that same message, but on a bigger scale. And it really would be enforcing to folks that letter, she meant what she said, and we all back that up. There's more important things right now than what you cover in period 3 in the 4th grade, and there are more important things right now, I think, than everybody's in school every day right now. An unexpected full day relax, to me would be the 12th. And part of, I think, the benefit is the unexpectedness. I think I was sort of not agreeing with the day before Thanksgiving because I felt that would just give a lot of teachers an early start on, thank God I'll be home, I can start cooking early, I can start cleaning early. And the point of our with this day is just relax. And I'm sort of looking at the same idea about that on the day after Thanksgiving. Great, we can stay longer, and then we can do the mad rush home from grandma's and blah, blah, blah. And it's not, the intent of the day is take a day off and breathe deeply. And I don't think you do that on before or after like the holiday. To me, December seems an awful long way to say to folks, we're going to give you a day to relax, but it's not until December. Folks are struggling. I think this is a good thing to do and that we should do it soon, and that we should, I would be willing to make a motion to at least put it on the table to see how other folks feel, but maybe after, maybe some more folks want to talk about it.
Ms. Nuncio? You're on mute. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with Ms. Manning about the felt need being now, that there is this sense of really struggle on the part of a lot of people in the school system and outside. And it would be healthy and good to do that. And the only thing I want to make sure I understand correctly is that in the cases where there are working parents who will have to scramble to figure out childcare solutions, did I hear Dr. Zweig correctly to say that there would be community partners who, although they are responsible for their students, would be able to take other students when the teachers and other staff are not in school?
Yes, I think they would be able to take some. I don't want to make promises that they could take all students, but they would be able to take some, and we would work with them, to do to offer as many seats as they possibly could. The day before, again, is a holiday, the Thursday, and that was another factor in this is, we knew kids would be home on Thursday. And there's just that one day we were worried about attendance anyway, coming back from a day off before, the weekend. So, they would be able to take some, but I don't want to, give the impression that all students would have access that wanted it.
So guys, I think the question before is if we're going to act on a date like the 11th, we'd have to act today. In order to give parents notice, if that is something that folks want to proceed with. I think we're all under the impression that all of us share the belief that we want to try and do what we can to address some of the challenges we know to the start of this year. The question is if we're going to act today. And I think that's when I'm looking for feedback. I'm also trying to be cognizant of the time. So if you could offer comments about your willingness to act today, that would be on the 11th, or willingness to get some feedback and find another day within short order. Ms. Campbell, I'm going to call on Dr. Pangalo just because we haven't heard from her yet on this, and then call on you if that's okay.
I just wanted to respond to Ms. Manning's point, but that's fine too. That's fine. Never mind.
I'm fine with it. I was just going to two things. Given that people seem to have, anecdotally be interested in the 12th, I think I can understand that. That essentially gives 2 long weekends instead of just 1. It allows a little bit more decompression, I think. But the second point is with the 12th is that we do have, according to the presentation, the ECC and Bentley is scheduled for a day on the 12th. So that would be able to be rescheduled, Chelsea, I would imagine.
Yes, they're aware and ready to respond.
Great. Ms. Campbell?
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify, I'm not saying that one date is better than the other. I'm just saying that it's not, I think it's in everybody's best interest for us to say, here are options. What would you prefer? Because I don't think that it's going to be very restful or relaxing to have it necessarily dictated. Here's when you relax and here's how you relax. That doesn't, to me, sound or feel like a mental health wellness day. So I think instead, and I don't know if this is possible, but I think we could say we're authorizing either of these two options, send it out to STU for members or for all staff or for all the people to vote on tomorrow and make the determination right away for families to get to. But I think that there are some people, like, if we're saying do what you love to do on that day, that might be on that Monday to be able to spend more time with family. It might be to clean the house and feel like your life is in order. Or people might say, I'd much rather have the 12th. But I think, again, if the message we want to send is do things that fill your bucket, that restore you, then there should be some amount of choice in it. Otherwise, we're saying this is when you're going to be able to relax. And again, I could make the argument for any number of days for any variety of reasons, but it shouldn't be up to just us to decide when it's going to take place. I'd much rather see some type of, we authorize to extend the calendar and for a day to be closed pending the results of what, STU determines, or I keep saying STU, I mean all the staff, but I just feel like that to me sends a better message of when do you want to take your day? When do you want to relax? And it's going to be a decision by the staff members rather than by us, the school committee with school administration to decide.
Thank you for that. I think there's a family component there. We also want to try and get feedback from, is what I heard. So perhaps we could take your suggestion into the form of a motion that we authorize the superintendent to alter the calendar as soon as potentially November 11th or later in the year, based on feedback he receives over the course of the next several days. Ms. Manning?
If we don't vote tonight, it's too late and it's the 12th, I believe. We're
No,
talking about.
I believe we could authorize the superintendent to alter the calendar. So we wouldn't necessarily be selecting the date. We would leave it up to the superintendent to gather that feedback. And I think we could turn that around fairly quickly. And so can make the determination whether it's the 12th or whether it's another day tied to Thanksgiving or a whole other day that we're not thinking about. The goal being obviously some relative desire to do something sooner rather than later, but in a way that has input.
Okay.
Mr. Cruz?
So I'd definitely support that motion, Mayor. So I know you were looking for which direction. I think offering that flexibility to the superintendent to go out and get that feedback from parents and staff, I think would be great. So if that motion comes before us, I'll vote for it.
Dr. Zweig, do you want to offer any commentary? Does that work for you? This essentially would give you the agency to find the right date with our blessing, and it could be as soon as the date proposed. So we wouldn't have to meet again for that.
Yeah, we could get a poll out tomorrow.
Right.
And I do think parents should be surveyed as well, but I do agree with what Ms. Campbell just, the more input, the better. I apologize. It's so rushed. I wish I thought of it a few weeks ago, but it is, the timing is what it is, but we can definitely get something out quickly and turn it around and see what folks have to say.
So is the motion, Ms. Campbell?
All right, I was going to make the motion for you.
Go right ahead.
Yep. So I would just move to authorize the superintendent to extend the calendar as written by an additional day, and then in soliciting feedback, determine a day to provide off for students and staff, or whatever day is at the discretion of the superintendent.
Thank you. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Ms. Manning, is that a second?
No, I want a question.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cruz. Under discussion, Ms. Manning?
Yeah, are we saying that we now expect that the superintendent reach out to all parents, or like the councils, or like a limited number, like how would that play out? Because I'm just curious, because we've added.
Right. Do you want to answer that? I think you can gather feedback through Parent Square, through a number of the resources, but
we would probably do a poll through Parent Square.
That's to everybody.
That goes to everybody, yeah, and to staff. And we just take the data we've got around what preferences people have.
Okay. So we know that we're still going to have unhappy campers who got a chance to vote but didn't get their choice.
Correct.
Every decision I make, we make
always
unhappy
Right.
campers. Okay. Yeah. Yep. I will also just point out that a survey will also be forthcoming around snow days. So that's next after this, to give input on what we do moving forward there as well.
A motion's been made and seconded that we authorize the superintendent to gather some feedback and come up with a date that's going to work, hopefully as well as possible for families, with the idea that we'd like to see some movement on this and are willing to extend the calendar, but just given our own schedules, if we're going to do a sooner date, it really would be helpful to both get that input and get that notice out. Motion's been made and seconded. Any other questions or comments on this?
Oh, I have one.
Go right ahead, Ms. Manning.
Only that if we include the day before Thanksgiving on this poll for the staff, we're now going against what the administrators who were in the discussion with Dr. Zweig, I believe, were not in favor of that day. So are we going to include that day, or is this the 12th and the day after, and not the day before Thanksgiving? Because that seems to have already been a discussion.
I don't plan to include the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor, Ms. Manning,
Yep.
Dr. Pingala,
Yes.
Ms. Nuncio,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Driscoll, yes. 6 members voting, 6 in the affirmative, the matter carries. Anything else, Dr. Zweig?
No, I just have something on new business.
Okay, let's go to new business.
Okay.
Mayor
Cruz?
Driscoll,
Yep,
student representative report.
okay, yep, I'm sorry, I thought Awa wasn't here, but if you're gonna offer some remarks, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, she had asked me if I could provide her report for today. So just wanted to update members of the committee that, and apologies if we hear background noise. We're having a little bit of an issue here. Let's see. So with respect to the students, they have been meeting with Mr. Burns regarding issues in the high school centered around some of the pieces that we had previously discussed, restorative justice, some of the in-school time and the way that it's being used. Additionally, trying to get a little bit more granular on some of the systems of repression within the district and how students might be able to work on these. And then additionally, the students have raised an issue regarding Wi-Fi access and some of the issues that's presented for students being able to complete student work. Students are pleased to share that they recently had a slate of candidates who ran for some of the positions on the Student Advisory Council itself. And so all those positions are now filled. Vice Chair is now Jimena, Corresponding Secretary Emily, Press Secretary Trinity, and Treasurer Alana. And then additionally, they're continuing to do some outreach to other students that are slated in their bylaws to serve. The superintendent has been invited to participate in a meeting this coming Wednesday with the Student Advisory Council as a follow-up to our last school committee meeting regarding the SROs, the MOU, and pieces around that particular process. Additionally, the students would like to meet with all of us. So aside from the one-to-ones that we had discussed for AWA, that she was interested in taking place, the Student Advisory Council on a rotational basis would love to meet with the school committee members as well. So we should expect to hear from them regarding some additional outreach. And so those are the current updates that I have from the student representatives.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Ms. Manning?
Do those students have last names, Manny, that you could?
They do have last names, Mary. I'm happy to get those to Nancy for the minutes, but they weren't put in the notes, so I don't have them handy. But if I did,
I just would like to know. Okay.
Absolutely. As soon as I get them, though, I will send those over to you.
Thanks.
Dr. Pingala?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know we talked last week about our meeting one-on-one with each of us. Should we be reaching out to her, or are we waiting for her to reach out to us? I'm not entirely sure how that's supposed to work.
So she has her hands quite full between her role and I think the college application process. I think maybe if we could work with the school committee secretary on getting our availability over to AWA and trying to meet with her at a convenient time, just given all that she has on her plate. So Dr. Reich, if that's okay with you, I know that we're in the midst of a transition, but if we could do just a generic email reaching out to school committee members for their availability and for AWA's availability, and just trying to match on a rotational basis. Obviously, given that Ms. Campbell and I meet with AWA on a more regular basis, it would be for most prioritizing committee members that don't necessarily always get that opportunity, because that was one of her asks. She just wanted to build some deeper relationships with all the different members and learn about some of the priority areas as well.
Yeah, I'll have Mindy start that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'm going to move us along to new business. Dr. Reich, you said you had something on new business?
Yeah, just on new business, it's, you had in your packets, a new job description for Assistant Superintendent Carboni. I had brought to the Personnel Subcommittee the need to just change the job description. It's not a change of contract, change of salary. It's a change of her title, because we now have an Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Employee Engagement. We thought it was important to, not, the term Assistant Superintendent is without anything following is a little confusing and misleading. But given that now Mrs. Carboni is leading more than just teaching and learning, she's got responsibilities across the organization with some of the shifts we made after Dr. Baird did her analysis last year. We thought Deputy Superintendent was a more appropriate title. It also designates that when I'm not in the district, Ms. Carboni's in charge and is the superintendent while I'm not here. I think it just honors the fact that she's taking on more responsibilities with this shift in reorganization. And so this came through the Personnel Subcommittee. You see the job description in your packet. I'm just asking, anytime there's a change in job description, it needs to be approved by the school committee, and that's why we're here.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Reich. I'd entertain a motion at this time. I think it was fairly self-explanatory, the information we got. I want to thank Ms. Carboni for all the time and effort she puts in. Whether we call you Deputy Superintendent or Assistant Superintendent, you're always really committed to the district, and just grateful that we're making this change to more properly reflect the role and responsibilities you have in the district.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Cruz. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Manning. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, Ms. Manning,
Yes.
Dr. Pangalo,
Yes.
Ms. Nuncio,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
and Mayor Driscoll. Yes, 6 members voting, 6 in the affirmative. Kate, you're hired. Other new business. I have one item, and I'm sorry, guys, I'm in a crunch time, so I'm probably going faster than you want me to, but I do need to hop off shortly, and Ms. Manning will take over for me if there's additional new business. We did have a request that you mentioned from the charter school for expansion. I'm wondering, I don't think we need to take any action today, but I am wondering if it's possible for us to get an idea of a calculation for what impacts financially that would have to the district for 30 additional students, I think is what they requested. So if that's something you could provide us at the next meeting, I think it would be helpful if there's any additional action that we want to take as a body with respect to their request.
Yes, we can do that. Yep.
Thank you. I'll keep moving us along. Subcommittee report, the policy subcommittee up for second reading. I don't think there's a finance and operations report, so I'm gonna keep going here. Policies for second reading on policy 1101, our school community relations goals. We voted on this at the last meeting. This is one of 3 opportunities, the third and final one being at our next meeting. And entertain a motion for second reading.
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Campbell, seconded by Ms. Nuncio. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, Ms. Manning,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming, I'm sorry, Dr. Pangalo,
Yes.
Ms. Nuncio,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz. I think Mr. Cruz may have had to step away. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mayor Driscoll, yes. 5 members voting, 5 in the affirmative. The matter carries. Mr. Cruz, do you want to be recorded as in favor of second reading on the policy subcommittee?
Yes, please. My
Okay.
apologies.
Nope, no worries. 6 members voting, 6 in the affirmative. School committee concerns and resolutions. You guys are good. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion made by Ms. Manning. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Ms. Campbell. All those in favor, Ms. Manning,
Yep.
Dr. Pangalo,
Yes.
Ms. Nuncio,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
and Mayor Driscoll. Yes, 6 members voting, 6 in the affirmative. The matter carries. We stand adjourned. Good luck, everyone, tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
luck.
team, for all the hard work. See you soon.